Imagine an English Saturday morning. Somewhere in 1964. The corner store recently opened. Standing at the front gate with her arms folded, a woman in a housecoat observes the passing scenery. And what a world it is! A small red automobile that is low and buzzing appears down the road. Behind it was a large white saloon that was confident, majestic, and unhurried. Then, before you can fully appreciate it, a glimpse of something long and green, too lovely to believe, is gone. Somehow, that weird, restless, self-assured spirit made its way into the automobiles being manufactured in Coventry, Abingdon, Solihull, and Dagenham throughout the 1960s, when Britain was still recovering from years of suffering. These weren't merely devices. They represented a shifting form. We're counting down 10 of the most iconic British cars from that decade. If even one of them comes to mind, please share it in the comment section. Please stay tuned, and if this reminds you of anything, please like and subscribe to the video so we can continue sharing these tales. 10. The vehicle that offered common people a choice was the Triumph Herald. The majority of British vehicle customers took whatever the dealer had before the real arrival of the 1960s. You requested transportation, and you received it in the color that was offered. Launched in 1959 and constructed until 1971, the Triumph Herald subtly altered that presumption. At a period when most competitors had switched to monocoque construction, it was available on a separate chassis in a number of body styles, including saloon, convertible, estate, and coupe. Because of its independent chassis, it had the smallest turning circle of any British vehicle at the time, just over 25 feet, which allowed it to fit into a gap on a Saturday market town high street and outperform nearly everything else. Giovanni Michelotti created the bodywork in Turin, and it was elegant enough to make the car appear much more expensive than it actually was. The Herald felt both contemporary and doable to the young typist in Birmingham who was saving money with her fiancé and the retired schoolteacher in a Cornish village who had never driven anything abroad. It conveyed to a generation that they were free to choose a car. 9. The vehicle that subtly rose to prominence in Britain was the Austin 1100. The BMC 1100, which was marketed under the names Austin, Morris, Milligram, and others, was the best-selling vehicle in Britain for 5 years in a row between 1963 and 1967. Not the most ostentatious. Not the quickest. The best-selling product every year. It was developed by Alec Issigonis, utilizing the same transverse engine and front-wheel drive concept that he had used for the Mini but in a more sophisticated form. This car was the first to use Alex Moulton's hydroelastic suspension system, which coupled the front and rear suspension components with fluid-filled displacer units to provide a genuinely smooth ride on the rough British roads of the day. It could accommodate 4 adults without any of their knees coming into contact with one another. It was properly booted. The heater was operational. The 1100 was the young couple's first new vehicle when they moved into a new home on a new estate on the outskirts of a Midlands town, and they drove it to the beach every August for 7 years. In the 1960s, Britain's highways were constructed around it, even though you might never see it on a banner. 8. The tiny vehicle that refused to fit in was the BMC Mini. The Mini cost £496 when it was first unveiled on August 26, 1959. The exact date is confirmed by the documents. Alec Issigonis had placed the transmission underneath it in the same oil sump, put the engine sideways, and managed to convince passengers and luggage to occupy 80% of the car's 10 feet of length. 4 grown-ups. 10 feet. It shouldn't have worked, but for years it did better than anything that came after. By the early 1960s, the Mini had accomplished something that no other British automobile had. It had broken down class. They were driven by dukes. Longbridge industrial workers also did. Film stars, nurses, architects, and people who worked at market stalls also did. The Mini Cooper, created in collaboration with racing builder John Cooper, won the Monte Carlo Rally in 1964, 1965, and 1967. However, it was disqualified the following year, which is still up for debate among motorsport historians. However, the awards are essentially irrelevant. The Mini demonstrated that anything in the world could be defeated by something tiny, inexpensive, and truly intelligent. In the 1960s, that was more important to Britain than words can express. 7. The Ford Cortina was the vehicle that had a deeper understanding of Middle England than the country itself. On September 20, 1962, Ford introduced the Cortina, which quickly became precisely what Britain needed without realizing it. Because the engineers at Dagenham had worked so hard to keep the weight down, it was purposefully light. It was easy to keep up. One Ford engineer observed at the time that it had a decent boot, the kind a traveling salesperson could easily load his samples into. The rising army of fleet purchasers, company car drivers, and suburban families who required something that would start on a chilly January morning and continue to run 5 years later were drawn to the base model, which cost £573 in its 1,200 cubic centimeters incarnation. A Cortina, perhaps white or pale blue with a set of GB plates on the back from a vacation that seemed to be the furthest the family had ever been, is almost surely present on any British street in the middle of the 1960s. Over 4 million Cortinas were produced over the course of 20 years. That number was unmatched by any other British vehicle at the time, and no other vehicle fit in so well with the real British way of life. 6. The first European car of the year, the Rover P6, was a vehicle worthy of every vote. When the European Car of the Year award was originally given out in 1964, the winner was not Italian. It wasn't German or French. It was British. When the Rover 2000, sometimes referred to by fans as the P6, was unveiled in October 1963, it defeated every competitor from every nation to win the first prize. It deserved it. Road testers found it difficult to fully characterize the car's handling thanks to the de Dion rear suspension, which was a true engineering marvel. Even by continental standards, the conventional four-wheel disc brakes were inboard at the back. In a way that truly seemed like progress, the journey on Britain's new roads was calm and seamless. They were driven by doctors. They were driven by senior engineers. The kind of man who spent his vacations strolling around the Cairngorms instead of lounging on a beach and reading serious newspapers. The Rover P6 was not a loud vehicle. It really provided everything a considerate driver might want in a quiet and comprehensive manner. The drivers were completely unsurprised when it went on to win the most coveted accolade in European motoring. Please leave a comment below if any of these vehicles remind you of a certain summer, a trip, or a scent. The best part of doing this is reading all of your stories. 5. The beating heart of a British summer is the Austin Healey 3000. The Austin Healey 3000, which was manufactured between 1959 and 1967, came to represent the pinnacle of what a British sports car might be at a period when nobody was attempting to be innovative. The 2,912 cubic centimeters straight-six engine was powerful enough to be audible. Pat Moss, the sister of Stirling Moss, drove a Healey to an overall victory in the Liège-Rome-Liège Rally in 1960, the first time a woman had won a major international rally outright. The works rally vehicles accumulated real victories on the European stages that mattered. The Alpine Rally was won by the Morley brothers in 1961 and 1962. These were not amicable occurrences. They were endurance tests that wrecked inferior equipment. After absorbing them, the 3000 returned for more. However, the history of the tournament does not tell the complete tale. The entire narrative revolves around the young man, top down, on a Saturday night in the summer of 1965, somewhere on a Worcestershire B-road with no specific destination in mind, and the sound of the engine filling the countryside behind him. In reality, such was the purpose of the Austin Healey 3000. 4. The Lotus Elan. Honesty through lightness. The Lotus Elan weighed about 680 kilograms when it debuted at the Earl's Court Motor Show in October 1962. That is the crucial figure. Not the engine size, horsepower, or top speed, even if those were all noteworthy enough at the time. The mass. The Elan was Colin Chapman's most sophisticated example of his belief that making a car lighter was the most honest way to make it faster. The steel backbone chassis supported the fiberglass body. A Ford block with a specially designed Lotus cylinder head served as the foundation for the twin-cam engine. When many sports cars were still stopping on drums at the back, four-wheel disc brakes were the norm. Jim Clark, who won the World Championship in 1963 and 1965 while driving for Lotus in Formula One during the 1960s, began using an Elan as his personal road vehicle in 1962. "I drive my Lotus Elan for pleasure, not because I have to," is the caption next to Clark in an existing 1965 Lotus calendar photo of him sitting on the bonnet of his Elan. The debate over a road automobile is resolved when the world's quickest racer says that. 3. The roadster that refused to be anything but what it was the MGB. On May 22, 1962, the Abingdon facility finished producing the first MGB. It was priced at £690 plus purchase tax when it was formally introduced to the public at the Earls Court Motor Show in September of that year. After 18 years of manufacture, almost 512,000 vehicles were produced, making it the best-selling British sports car ever when it was retired in 1980. The MGB made no attempt to emulate Elan. It made no attempt to emulate the E-Type. It had a monocoque body structure that was lighter and stiffer than a separate chassis, as well as wind-up windows, which the MGA lacked. With a top speed of slightly over 100 miles per hour and about 95 horsepower, the 1,798 cubic centimeters B-Series engine was more than plenty for a winding English road on a September afternoon. The MGB was the sports car that hundreds of thousands of people who could never afford the E-Type really owned, drove, and went on vacation in the Lake District Inn with the hood down and sideways rain. It lasted longer than nearly anything else the decade created, and it was the genuine thing, for real people. 2. The vehicle that caused Enzo Ferrari to look for words was the Jaguar E-Type. Jaguar introduced the E-Type to the global media on March 15, 1961, at the Parc des Eaux Vives restaurant in Geneva. 265 horsepower was produced by the 3.8-litre straight-six engine. When Autocar magazine examined a coupe with registration number 9600 HP, it registered a top speed of 154 miles per hour and a 0 to 60 time of 6.9 seconds. This car has since become one of the most chronicled vehicles in automotive history. The Roadster cost £2,097 at launch. For the same level of performance, Ferrari's road vehicles are at least twice as expensive. According to Enzo Ferrari, it is the most exquisite automobile ever produced. The significance of the E-Type to Britain in 1961, a nation still rebuilding, still rationing ambition, and still only partially aware that its finest days were over, is sometimes forgotten. This demonstrated that Coventry, a city nearly destroyed by bombing in 1940, was capable of creating something that caused the entire world to pause and gaze. Certain automobiles are stunning. Something more than beauty was demonstrated by the E-Type. 1. The giant killer that restored Britain's self-confidence was the Mini Cooper S. Co-driven by Henry Liddon, Finnish driver Rauno Aaltonen led a BMC Mini Cooper S to victory in the 36 Monte Carlo Rally on January 20, 1967. The vehicle weighed around 630 kilograms in total, and its engine had a displacement of somewhat more than 1,000 cubic centimeters. On ice and snow, at night, and over mountain routes that had wrecked machinery 3 and 4 times its size, it outperformed vehicles made by the most powerful manufacturers in Europe. After Paddy Hopkirk in 1964 and Timo Mäkinen in 1965, this was the Mini's third victory at Monte Carlo. The 1967 victory brought with it the unique gratification of a score being settled, because there had been a disqualification in 1966. The French organizers found fault with the headlamp bulbs, a judgment that still raises temperatures wherever the matter is mentioned. However, 1967 is not the number that counts. It is the total weight, the size of the engine, and the winning margin. People wanted to hear what that little car did against those opponents on those Alpine stages. That it wasn't a drawback to be little. That intelligence may overcome strength. That Britain still possessed something the rest of the world could not match in all its humility, inventiveness, and calm resolve. The 10 vehicles you have spent this time with were more than just manufactured goods. They served as the backdrop for a decade's worth of events, including first drives, family vacations, young men making promises on the A-roads, and elderly men recalling the ones they kept. Every one of them carried a bit of the restless, optimistic, and often turbulent spirit of the 1960s. And they all left a lasting impression on those who drove them, sat in them, or just watched one drive by and felt something they couldn't quite put their finger on. Please let us know in the comments if any of these vehicles come to mind, such as your father's Cortina that smelled like pipe smoke or the MGB your neighbor kept in his garage and once let you sit in. We would really like to know. Please give the video a like and subscribe to the channel if this journey has been worthwhile. For as long as you want to hear these stories, we will continue to share them.